So one thing that Excel is really good at is organizing stuff in columns and rows, like obviously because it's built in columns and rows. But one of the things that's kind of confusing about it is if I go to print this out right now, like it doesn't print the way you see it on the screen. This is just for editing. Like these grid lines that you see that go vertically, horizontally, those grid lines, they don't print unless you tell them to. So if I was to print this right now, I'd basically get a blank piece of paper with a square like right in the middle with these numbers in it. Which in a spreadsheet this size, like a table of this size, probably not that big a deal. But what if the table is like 200 columns wide and 400 rows deep? You see what I mean? So it can get kind of crazy. So if you had to take this information and present it to your board of directors, if you just printed this out and walked in there with it, they'd probably be pretty upset. Because you did the bare minimum, cranked it out, and handed it out to a set of high-level executives. That was dumb. Bare minimum, high-level executives, those don't mix. Second of all, this is not easy to read. Like if you have this on a sheet of paper with just these numbers and it's big, it's almost impossible to read. Okay, it becomes very difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to dress this up. First of all, so that you can prove to them that you care about your job. But second of all, so that you can make it look a little bit nicer and make it easier to read. So we're going to make this Excel formatting practice look like this example right here. Now you don't have to use my colors and stuff, but we're going to burn through this really quick, and then I'm going to show you how to save it for sure so you don't lose it. So I'm going to do this title up here. So this pounds lifted right here doesn't look anything like that pounds lifted over there, right? What kind of things do I have to do to it to make this one in the example or the practice look like the example? What do you think? You have to merge the cells and center the information in those merged cells. So what he's saying is, over here we have 9 individual cells, right? But in the example, we only have one big old fat cell. That's called merging the cells. Okay, and then we've centered the information in there. Some other things, what else we got to do with it? We probably don't want to make it bigger, right? Maybe bolded because the title. You want it to look big and flashy, right? And then you're noticing that there's gray in the background, I hope. And then you can't see it really well, but around this cell there's actually a border. Because these grid lines, they don't print unless you tell them to print. And not only do you have to tell them to print, you have to tell them exactly how you want them to print. Solid, thick, dotted, dashed, whatever you want, you have to tell it how to do that. So I'm going to take this pounds lifted, I'll make it look like that one, and I'm going to do it twice. The first way I'm going to do is I'm just going to use these buttons up here in the toolbar. Okay, and then I'm going to do it again and not use any buttons in the toolbar. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the 9 cells across the top of this. Now notice I did not do this. Because how many cells did I just select by clicking that row header? Yeah, over 16,000. I don't need 16,000 cells. I need 9. I'm going to select 9. Spreadsheets are extremely precise. Tell them what you want, no more, no less. Then I'm going to go up here. I'm going to start with the merge and center. There happens to be a button right here in the bottom row, kind of in the center, okay, of your home ribbon. It says merge and center. You just click it. Boom. So you got it merged and centered. Now I'm going to make it bigger in my font section here. Make it, 18. Maybe some bold action there. So it's getting closer, right? It's looking pretty good. So I'm going to put a color in the background. You'll notice in the font section right here, there's a paint bucket right there. You just open up the color palette for the paint bucket. You throw in any color you want. I'm going to use my gray because it's what I used before. Right? You can use whatever color you want. I don't really care. Okay, but now if you look at it, you'll notice that there's a difference. See, this one, our original one, has no border yet, but our example does. Now you can actually see the difference there. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to put a border around this. And there is actually a borders button in the bottom row of the font sections right there. Border button. Open that up. You got all these options. I'm just going to throw down a thick box border. Shazam. It's done. Now I'm going to back up. Okay, I'm going to back up to the beginning. I'm going to do it again. But I'm not going to use any buttons in the toolbar at all. Okay, I'm not even going to touch it. So I'm going to start the same. I'm going to highlight the same 9 cells. But this time I'm going to right click and go down to Format Cells. Now there's a Format Cells button right there. But I said I wasn't going to use any buttons. They take you to the same place. Right click, Format Cells. Now I get to this Format Cells window that has 6 tabs up here. I don't need to mess with the Numbers tab because this is not a number. Okay? And I don't need to mess with the Protection tab because I don't need to lock this particular cell or this particular range of cells for any reason because it's just open to everybody, right? So if I go over here to the number or to the Alignment tab, it's where I'm going to start. So my Alignment tab, I'm going to put it in the center and I'm going to tell it to merge cells. Notice nothing's happened yet. See nothing? Nothing. Okay, that's normal. Okay, but also notice how many other options you've got here that you don't have out here on the buttons. You got to come in here for that. Then I'm going to go to my Font tab. I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to make it big. I'm going to make it bold. Still, nothing's happened. I'm going to go to my Borders tab. Now, the Borders tab is the reason why I come in here the most rather than just using the buttons. Sometimes the buttons are super convenient. Sometimes coming in here is better. This is one time when it's better. The Borders tab in here is super useful because what we do is on the left, you can choose whatever kind of line you want. Like if I want a thick line on the left and the right, but I want a dashed line on the top and the bottom, I can do that here, super easy. Okay, that's not what I want today, but I can do that. The Borders button is not able to do fancy stuff. So for today, I don't want that. I just want a thick box border outline, problem solved. So I'm gonna go to my Fill tab now. Here I got all the colors that I need, but I've also got fill effects here. Like if you want to do a gradated fill effect, you got to come in here to do that. Same with patterns, okay, or pattern colors, that kind of thing. Now notice, nothing's happened out there yet, but as soon as I click OK, bam, it does them all at the same time. You guys are going to finish the rest of this. This is where you kind of play around with what I showed you and learn how to do it on your own. Now, what I look for when I grade it. I don't care what colors you use. I don't care what line patterns you use. But this is what I look for. I look to make sure that the title is done. We did that together a couple of times now. I look to make sure that the column headers right here kind of pop. People want to be able to see those. They want their eyes to travel back to that quickly, easily, to know what column they're in and what they're looking at, right? I look for 2 colors alternating in the bottom part. The alternating colors help people's eyes stay on a particular line as they move across from left to right. And remember, this is a pretty small table. This only has 9 columns. It could have 400 columns. All right, so it could be much, much bigger. Notice that I have 2 different kinds of lines around each one of these cells. So I have dotted lines going horizontally, and I have solid lines going vertically. Now, you don't have to use my patterns or anything, but I want to see 2 different kinds of lines down there. One going one way and one going the other way. You can do more if you want, but I need to see at least 2 lines touching each one of those cells. So, title done, column headers that pop, 2 colors in the bottom. White cannot be one of the colors. Has to be 2 real colors, and then 2 kinds of lines. And yeah, it's kind of exploratory. Mess around with it. You're not going to hurt anything. Okie dokie.